The Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm Phil Kirkbride and today joined by Adam Jones, Gavin Buckland and hopefully Dave Prentice running slightly late, but we are expecting his presence and his wisdom as always. Thank you very much for listening. We are here again to chew the fat over all the major talking points at Goodison Park. There'll be some reflections. Finally, the January window shuts and finally we can talk about the business that was and wasn't done rather than speculating about what could happen. Of course, we will be reflecting on the dramatic uplifting victory at Watford over the weekend. Of course, in the discussion, as we discussed last time, and what that means for potential European qualification. We'll also take your question. We put it out on Twitter just earlier, and some interesting questions have come in, so thank you for them. And we'll be hopefully trying to provide some interesting and insightful answers. So we'll start with very quickly, because we won't dwell on it, because we talked about it throughout the month and before January. The window shut Friday, a bit of late movement. Jonas Lossell going out on loan. Just very quickly, Adam, thoughts on the window as a whole? Are you comfortable with what happened and maybe what didn't happen?
Yeah, I think with the current situation that we find ourselves in, both in terms of the finances and in terms of having a new management team on board. Yeah, I was quite happy with having a bit of a quiet sort of January transfer window and just keeping the focus on the summer. I think it was really interesting and quite surprising to see Jonas Lossell go right on deadline day. But when you think about it, it's actually not that surprising, really, is it? Because he's obviously got eyes on the Denmark squad for Euro 2020, and he's not got any game time so far at Everton, which is unfortunate for him. He probably would have had his sights set on challenging Pickford for that number 1 jersey, and it's just not really worked out for him. So hopefully he can pick up a little bit of game time at Huddersfield, and that's another position that we need to assess in the summer, obviously with Martin Stecklenburg's situation as well. And for the last couple of months of the season, it might give João Virginia a bit of a chance to work with the first team after his loan spell at Reading. But yeah, I think overall, yeah, I'm fairly happy with how January went. So let's just focus on the summer.
Gav, comfortable with what was?
Yeah, we spoke
done?
about, we had a more detailed discussion about this last week, didn't we? That you were given Ancelotti's just come in, our financial constraints, the fact that we've got quite a few players who we're going to find difficult to move on. That was quite January to be expected. I would be more worried if it had been a busy January.
Yeah,
to be honest.
yeah, well said. Yeah.
I think a quiet January is a good January, reflecting the game, wider game, isn't it? I think there's talk now trying to change the transfer windows around and stuff, isn't it? Because they realise January is no longer sort of the best time to buy. So, but for us as a club, yeah, perfectly acceptable. I mean, we've got Tosin's gone on loan, hasn't he, for the start? So that's a positive as such. He gets a bit of game time. He reduced the wage bill, so maybe gives him a bit of a sort of window to moving away, perhaps in the summer. So that was that was a positive one. Yeah, no complaints from me. And the summer will be the next big deal, I think.
Indeed, and we will talk in length in the coming months, no doubt, ahead of the summer. But we will leave transfer talk to one side for now. How many times have you both watched the winning goal from Vicarage Road?
Countless. Not just for the goal itself, but for the celebrations, because I just love that fella who ends up upside down and you can just see his leg up there down the stairs. But yeah, I think that's just, we needed something like that, didn't we? It's been far too long since, even we had a 90th minute winner. I think we saw a stat the last time Everton scored a 90th minute winner was against Watford on Bonfire Night in 2017.
Yeah,
that Leighton Baines penalty was the last time it happened, and we still nearly drew that game thanks to at the time Tom Cleverley penalty, didn't we? Yeah. But we needed just something like that, something to really uplift the fans and as you said at the start of the podcast, push us towards those European places again. It's put us firmly back in that fight. And speaking of fight as well, the players really showed that fight and desire, that not many of us would have expected after going 2-0 down.
And Gav, the first 90th minute winner away from home, if I'm not mistaken, since Tom Cleverley on Boxing
Day.
Yeah. 2015 was that?
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
I mean, me and Adam were talking about this in afterwards on the way home on Sunday, and sort of saying, there's Evertonians and the gallows humour. It's, we'd all say, it's been forever since we've won away from home in the 90th minute. But the reality is, it's been forever.
Yeah. It's just something we tend. I mean, we've got the horrible stats about how many 90th minute goals you can see to the team more than anybody else this season. So it's good that the boot was literally on the other foot, especially so soon after the Newcastle game as well.
Yeah.
We got two in at the time in the first half, didn't we? So combine the two things together, it's quite a compelling story, isn't it? Yeah, I thought. Fair play to the lads when he went down to 10 men on Saturday. We didn't notice as much because he made a couple of substitutions for players who were absolutely, for want of a better phrase, knackered.
Yes.
So the energy of the 10 players, including the 2 or 3 new subs, was the same as the 11 players with 2 tired players, I thought. So it was going down to 10 men was an absolute disaster.
An interesting, Gav, sorry to interrupt. Carlo actually said it helped us focus and stay tight and maintain shape.
Yeah, well, we did that, didn't we? And that's where the goal came from, wasn't it? We were compact at the back, and it was just. We've spoken about for a while, haven't we, about the lack of pace we've had for a number of years when you see some of the top teams, and we hoped that Marco would have brought that to us, but for one reason or another he didn't. And it was just great on Saturday seeing 3 players with pace running like they were going for the 100 metres. Gold,
it's incredible, isn't it?
Wasn't it?
Yeah. And I would urge people, if I don't know, many of you listening will have watched it like us many times, but when I watched it again today, keep watching it, that's what I picked up. I was like, what? They're going hell for leather.
Yeah, I mean, Moise Keane absolutely bombed on. Fair play to him. He was the one who started the break in the first place, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he was, again, part of his development. Nice assist as well, but we will go.
We'll talk about that.
But it was just great to see. I mean, the only one I could think of, I was just trying to think off the top of my head, was probably, remember when Barkley scored that goal at Newcastle, which is like about 6 years ago, where him and Lukaku can't absolutely legged it from our edge of our penalty area, apart from Ross didn't pass like Richarlison, he scored. And that was the last one I can remember where we've had away from home, we've bombed on, you know, really with speed. I thought it was, even allowing for Moise Keane's whatever pass, it was a really well worked goal. We spoke about Richarlison at some length, didn't we, on Friday and even the Friday before. He's seen his quality there.
And that's what you get from him, isn't it? Relatively quiet, I think Adam would agree. Relatively quiet in the day, but still had power, the pace, and as you say, the quality, Gav.
Yeah,
that's
to look up.
And a difference maker.
Yeah, to look up. That's what top players do, and that's why he's been sort of valued for the bids or not bids or whatever you would call it, because of those key moments. That's something he's really developed since, and to be fair, in his 18 months, he's really learned a lot. I would imagine if you looked at Richarlison now to when he first joined the club, which was still half decent, you'll see a really different type of player. Yeah. I always get the impression, with all due respect to other players, he thinks just slightly differently. To the other players in the squad. He's sort of operating on a slightly different level. It doesn't come off to him. Sometimes it doesn't come off, but on Saturday, you could. What I liked about it, I thought, first of all, I thought, pass. You know what I mean? And at the last minute, I don't know whether it was like more accident to design, before he passed it, he actually took the ball away from the defender, didn't he? Just to give him a little extra space to pass the pass the through ball to Keane. Otherwise, there was a chance the defender would have blocked it off because he was quite touch tight to him. And I don't know whether he meant that or not, but when you look at it, that's a really clever.
To me, it felt instinctive.
Like
that's just what he knew he had to do.
And it was he put the ball on the plate for Moise Keane, and he put out the ball on the plate for Theo.
Second plate for Theo.
And to be fair, Theo had a nightmare, I thought. I mean, there was two times, one in the second half, you should have played Cavalier, and he ended up passing it out for the goal kick, wasn't it?
We were talking to him about that after the game, and he was just saying, I completely cramped up. Like his leg just completely cramped because he was that tired, and he still managed that sprint at the end.
And the other one was we had an overload on the right hand side in the area, and he could have played Schneiderlin, and the ball went behind him. So he'd not had a great afternoon. The good thing about Theo, and that's why he's had a long career, I suppose, is he doesn't really hide. You know, he sort of, he's maybe a little bit fault for the first goal, doesn't hide, kept going at the end. It was like watching at Anfield in 2008, wasn't it? All them years ago. Where he's
retained his pace.
Yeah.
And that has not deserted him.
Yeah.
All the things that we can level at Theo Walcott, and I'm sure fans would have plenty to say that they think he's not up to scratch on. He's still a threat with pace. And Adam, you touched on this in a piece, and we were talking about it. He's got to offer more in terms of productivity and assists and goals. But when we saw that graphic from Marcel Brands at the general meeting of options in each position, it's clear, and Marcel said we need to go and find a right winger. But, is there actually a call to say that Theo actually has gone from being a player that people would have been fairly content with being moved out? Is he now actually somebody that we can utilise for the remainder of his contract and actually use well, and he can actually be a weapon in terms of, because when it does come and fall into place, he's still an option and still a threat.
Well, I think he's always been that, hasn't he? And I think the problem that we've had throughout his time at Everton is just to be able to consistently get that out of him. Like, we had it for his first few weeks. He scored a couple of goals against Leicester, got one against Newcastle as well a couple of weeks after that, didn't he? And, you're thinking to yourself, oh, maybe we've got, what Arsenal could never get out of Theo Walcott, this sort of consistency, and Silva's was always a fan of Walcott. He always seemed to make a point that he had a few very different types of wingers, and Walcott was almost in his own sort of bracket, that that kind of pacey sort of winger that we don't really sort of have. So I think that's still the case. We don't really have a player with, a wide player, at least with the kind of qualities that Theo Walcott has. He does have a good eye for goal. He doesn't consistently find the back of the net, but that goal against Bournemouth last season, I always go back to. That's somebody who's got a real eye for a good finish. He's somebody who wants to play up front on occasion as well. So, yeah, he can offer us a lot over the coming weeks, months, years of his contract, perhaps. But
as we said, he's got an opportunity now in the 13 games that remain in.
Well, yeah.
Given the lack of options on that right-hand side, he has got a real window, it would appear, to try and stake a claim.
Well, almost. He needs to look at what Marcel Brands was saying in that general meeting as a bit of a challenge to him. He's like, all right, well, I've made no secret, really, that we're going to be looking for a right midfielder in the summer. Now it's your turn to prove why you can stay involved in the squad, stay with the team when that right midfielder comes in. And, it is just about consistency for Walcott over these 13 games. And if he can provide, this sort of consistency, especially, and grab a few goals and assists over these next 13 games, then, he can still offer something for Everton next season, definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he scored a lot of goals, hasn't he, considering, he's not being a starter by any stretch of the imagination throughout his career. I think he's come up to 500 appearances at club level. I think a third of them have been off the subs bench. I'd like to think how many of the games he started, he's actually completed the full 90. So he's not got, he's played lots of games, but there's still like a lot in the tank, if you know what I mean. And he's got 120 odd goals in 500 games, which when you consider the starts subs balance is quite a good ratio. And he scored hat-tricks, he scored 4, hasn't he, in games. And for somebody who's not a striker as such, that's quite a decent record. He's got a hat-trick for England, hasn't he?
Of course.
I think he could be one of them players, like, we talk about Bernard, that actually 4-4-2 maybe suits him a little bit more, where he can just sit in deeper and he's got more space to run into than playing further up the pitch. And I'm just wondering whether that, maybe helps him. Certainly helped on Saturday, didn't it? But he's playing a little bit deeper and he's got more space, as I say. And he's got a good opportunity, like we spoke about Ancelotti's options in the summer. He's got an opportunity to sort of maybe not cement a first team place on right wing, because I still think we have the right winger anyway. But not making an automatic selection, which is what you want as a manager, where we're buying a right winger who's going to go in straight away. Buy a right winger to get competition between the two, and I still think that's open to him. He's on decent wage. He probably ain't going to be going anywhere from Everton.
Well, I was going to say that's always the conversation. That's always the but, isn't it? I guess with with Walcott when he's
Freudian slip there, Phil.
With Walcott when he's produced something positive, is that it's the consistency to what we're paying in ratio, etc. And that's always part of the discussion, unfortunately.
That's what it should be as well, shouldn't it? And no complaints. I was pleased for Walcott on Saturday. I'm right in front of our away fans, isn't it? Which is as good as what it gets. And fair play after that, actually what was being kind of moderate 45 minutes until Mr. Mina turned up,
Yeah, and indeed, and plenty for Carlo to work on still, but a really positive performance in the second half and positive result. Go on, where do we sit on Keane? That's a second assist for him in the league this season. The first was when he charged down a Rui Patricio goal kick or clearance. The second was on Saturday at Watford. Was that a subtle, wonderfully executed pass, Or was that a fluffed shot?
I put it this way, I wouldn't have wanted them to pass in the circumstances if I was the manager. If I was Richarlison, I was just thinking about Richarlison's thought. Well, I've ran the full length of the pitch here, put on a play for you, and you've sliced it wide. I thought it was a shot, but he deserved that little bit of luck this season. He
was in the right position. He got himself there.
If he'd have missed it, and if he'd have sliced it wide and gone out for the goal kick, he quite rightly would have got a bit of stick. But he deserved that little bit of luck, and that's just a sign maybe that his fortunes are changing. And he was the one who won the ball back on the break, and fair play to him. And he looked pretty sharp again when he came on, and he did motor down the middle of the pitch when he seen him on Saturday. He did motor. The other thing I said about Saturday, I don't know when they talk, Yerry Mina. Because I said, there's no stupid things, since you're in the game, is 2-0, he scores to make it 2-1. There's about like a minute left at half time and stuff until, the break. And then he picks the ball up and he starts running back to the halfway line with the ball. I'm thinking, why are you doing that, Yerry? We don't want them to kick off. We don't want them to give them the ball back. But obviously he knew something that we didn't like that,
Well, speaking of people being due luck, I mean, Yerry's had goals ruled out for against West Ham. We still don't know why it was ruled.
Yeah.
He's had goalies pull off saves probably they'll never make the rest of the season from headers. He was due a goal, wasn't he?
19 shots he had on goal before he finally managed to get that one in. And, the one that eventually went in was probably the easiest goal he's kind of scored in his whole career, like literally a yard out.
Toe ender.
Yeah, all he needs was just poke it in. But I think, all credit to him, especially for that second goal. I think his header, in holding off, I think he's a Cathcart who's trying to mark him. He does really well, like physically dominates Cathcart there, and it's a really good header. But I think fair play to the two set pieces as well. Yeah. I think our set pieces against Watford were much, much improved from what we've seen throughout the majority of the season. Thought Dean's ball in for the first one, was really good. It caused absolute havoc. And then Sigurdsson's ball in. Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Don't swear, Brenno, you are being recorded.
Yeah.
As promised, everybody, Dave has finally joined us. Carry on, Ad.
I can only apologise. I've been talking about the Grand National to an American journalist who could talk. I've only just managed to put the phone down on
Go on,
him.
Ad. Carry on about Mina.
Our set pieces were great.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I think Prentice would like this stat, actually. I just had a look. I think facing that Mina's only the third defender to score 2 goals in the first half for us in a game.
Derek Mountfield's got to be one.
Mountfield at Sunderland in 84. I think there was one in the 1910, something like that, so...
Right.
He's in good
Billy
company
Cook.
there. Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Well, he used to get one in a game and the penalty, but it's well due, like,
absolutely.
Well, like buses, wait all season, another one turns up straight away. And that won't do his confidence any harm, will it, just as being an Everton player.
Yeah. Preno, as I asked the lads, how many times have you watched back the winning goal from Saturday?
Well, the first thing I did, because I spent how long on Saturday afternoon trying to find, I shouldn't really be saying this, should I? A pub showing the match. And I failed miserably. I ended up around Waterloo, where normally you've got half a chance of seeing one. And I saw some very disconsolate looking Evertonian trudging down South Road and says, Dave, it's not on anywhere. I've looked. I thought, all right, okay. So I had to go and join Ronnie Good Listen Con Radio Merseyside back home. So the first thing I did when the goal was scored was, after sitting down again and composing myself, was looking at Twitter, just keying in Theo Walcott's name. And sure enough, there was a stream, and it was. So I watched that several times. I then did the Sky Match Choice thing later on. Then I watched Match of the Day. So a rough guess, probably about 24 times I've seen it so far. But it was just great. Everything about it. I mean, Richarlison's run was just tremendous. And again, emphasising what we've said in this room so many times, how important he is to Everton. Moise Keane's very calculated assist.
Well, I've just asked this very question. Was it a calculated pass or
no chance. It was a shot that he scuffed. But, Theo Walcott, fair play to him, incredible energy to actually get up the pitch to support the break. And I know people talked about him knocking it in at the far post, but it was a slightly more difficult effort than people are giving the credit for. You know, he was on an angle, he had to drill it, you know, the goalkeeper was trying to get back to cover, so it was a decent enough finish. And then the celebrations, I love that image of the fan who's upside down virtually with his ankles in the air. I mean, what did they call it? Limbs. It was tremendous.
And Carlo saying to us afterwards that he couldn't join in the touchline sprint. if I run, I am dead.
I don't know. I think
That's my favourite quote.
Letting on, but yeah, I understand that.
Let's talk about our form, though. Need to be given some due credit. Last 10 games, 19 points. Only our friends across the park have had more. We're banging in the fight for Europe, aren't we, Prentice?
100%. And it's good to hear them talking so boldly about that after the game. You know, you don't want to hear people saying, "Oh no, we'll just play each game as it comes and see." You know, so where we end up at the end of the season, you got to have some attainable targets. And it is attainable. I mean, to actually do that, we need to show consistency. And we are starting to do that under Carlo. We tend not to think that we are because of the one big disappointment, which was the FA Cup, result that, tends to, deflate, so any talk of momentum and stuff. But in league terms alone, the results are looking decent. Fixtures, there's some tricky ones in there, admittedly, but, they're not absolutely formidable. So, and the way everybody else is so inconsistent in the Premier League this season, it's definitely attainable. Why not aim for it? And I know it's a different argument altogether. I'd be delighted to see us in the Europa League next season, even if that does mean, kicking off the season in July. So be it. I mean, Carlo again said afterwards he's used to managing 3 days at a time. It's quite alien to him having a full week to prepare for matches. So it's something he's comfortable with. And if you've got aspirations to be, so a high-profile club, a big club, you've got to be in Europe. So why not aim for it?
And Carlo is in Europe almost all his career, isn't he? I think something like 21 out of the 24 or 5 seasons he's been a manager, he's been in Europe. Gavin, and it's a stat you've used on here the last couple of weeks. What do we think the number crunchers have said would get us to 5th?
56 or 57, don't they, based on, game? Yeah, it will be, high 50s a little bit. No Spurs won at the weekend, maybe gone up a little points, but now you're talking, I mean, Moyes' first full season, he finished 7th with 59, so you 5th with 50, about the same number. It shows you how, congested the bottom sort of 18 are, really. And it's eminently achievable, and I think we've got a few tough away games, but we know the quality of the Premier League this year's games that in the past you thought, I don't fancy that. You'd be saying, well, actually, we're on the up in our league form. Other teams aren't as good as what they've been in the past. They'll have pressure. You can take advantage of that. And it's a really good point what Plano says there, and he talked about, and when we were assessing, I mean, I'm quite happy to say I wasn't particularly a fan of Carlo's appointment, is that point was not raised. Actually, I can't remember saying about your playing in Europe under Carlo would be different in terms of handling the pressure than previous managers, because as you say, he's done it with big clubs for 20 odd years, and that's exactly what your manager wants, isn't it? He's got all that experience, and we need Europa League football for financial footballing reasons, reputational profile reasons. I cannot understand why you would not want it, to be honest with you, because we may do well in the league. Well, next year, we've said that before, we've not necessarily done well in the league the following year, have we?
And the impression I got, and Preno mentioned what Carlo had said, you kind of got the impression from what he was saying about managing every 3 days, and that's what he's comfortable with. You must feel like as a manager, that's what we get the best out of him in that scenario.
Some managers, all employees, you get some employees who are the most effective when they're busy.
Yeah.
You give them downtime, they lose their impact. And I think Carlo is definitely one of those managers, a bit like players who would rather play 2 times a week than once a week. They're more effective.
For footballers can do that as well. Everton have done it. Was it 2008 when Moyes had the
absolutely
was it 5th place finish in the Premier League, and was it last 16 of the Europa League, and you still remember sort of that. You hesitate to call it a run because getting to the last 16 isn't really the later stages of the competition, but it was still a really enjoyable. The Brambergen games in the previous round, the Fiorentina game is still talked about because of the atmosphere in the second leg, and they were memorable occasions, and there's no reason why it can't be done again. Yeah,
absolutely, because we were playing League Cup semi-final that year as
That's
well.
Right, of course,
we played. But when we were at the peak number of games between October and March, I think we only lost 2 out of 19-21. We only started losing games, paradoxically, when we went out of Europe. So, yeah, I think that's a real aspect of Carlo's management that things maybe being missed in his assessments, and I think that's a really fair point, to be honest with you.
Good stuff. Right, let's move on to the questions that have come in from social media. Everton, DC Gal. Would you buy John Stones back? Talk of him leaving City potentially in the summer. Would we have him back?
Yeah. In a heartbeat, yes.
You've just taken my words out of my mouth. I'm going to use exactly that phrase.
I think I still think he's a fantastic defender. You know, he obviously still young and he's still got a lot to learn, but, you know, I still think he's one of the best defenders that I've seen at Everton in years and years. You know, the kind of glass ceiling that he's got is so high if he lives up to his potential. You know, he's so good on the ball. It seems like, to me, like he'd fit into a Carlo Ancelotti system of this, you know, quickly playing out from the back. It seems like he'd fit into that perfectly. And, you know, I can't shake the thought of like a prospect of, you know, perhaps him and Mina or him and Holgate. Like, yeah, I think that'd be amazing.
That would be my follow-up question then to Gavin Preno. Does he come in as a automatic starter because he wouldn't leave City to go and be third choice, would he?
No, he wouldn't. But you know, that's what football squad's all about. You know, you've got to prove that you've earned the right to have that place. Funny enough, the name that you mentioned there, Adam, is the one that is the only rider I would put into that. The answer is yes, I would definitely take him. But Mason Holgate has really surprised me this season. You know, just with the rate of progress. He's looking such an authoritative, assured individual. You know, even being used in midfield on occasions, and as just come out of nowhere, really. You know, to spend the season on loan at West Brom, playing largely right back, was it? You know, to come back and actually, you know, show the presence that he has, and he's holding down a first choice place. You know, so deservedly so now. You know, so Michael Keane can't have any complaints because, you know, so Mason Holgate is playing very, very well. But if you're in Europe, you know, you need to have a strong squad. And, you know, John Stones is an international footballer. He's a young footballer, as we've just said. And he's something a bit different to your average defender. He's so comfortable in possession and so capable of building. He's had tricky moments at Manchester City, but he's only going to have improved as a result of that. You know, so temperament-wise, experience-wise, he's going to be a better person and a better footballer for having gone through those times. I don't really see any negatives unless City put a prohibitive transfer fee on his head. Well, of course. But that apart, you know, so I don't really see there being any argument why you wouldn't take him back.
Jake Marley on Holgate asks, is Holgate's best position centre-back or central midfield, Gav?
Good question. On the Stones thing,
yes,
by the way, just to say, yes, I have him back in a heartbeat, but in terms of if you've got a limited summer budget, is central defence one area of the pitch you want to further spend money when you may want to buy midfielders.
Of course, he's on Man City wages, remember?
Yeah, so it's just definitely, I think you'd have to factor that in. Yeah. Mason Holgate, best centre-back or
centre mid?
Well, you say vis-a-vis the previous question, you could say bring Stones as a centre-half and play Mason Holgate in midfield and save yourself a midfielder, you know. I don't know. I just think physically, it looks to me, is he big enough to be a top-class centre-half? Is he? I know will grow, but you think centre. You know, can you not be a leading centre half, but not necessarily have the height? You know, bad example, but Man City bought Nicolas Otamendi, and he's won a hell of a lot of things there. I know
you don't necessarily need height to be an effective centre half.
Yeah, and I'm just asking, you know.
I mean, Costa Curta wasn't not Costa Curta. Sorry, Cannavaro was not the biggest, is he?
Yeah, should have signed him.
Who was the Portuguese lad at Chelsea?
Carvalho, maybe.
Carvalho's like
not the biggest.
And I'm not saying he's a poor centre half because he's not big enough. What I'm saying is that like that. If you're saying which way would you play him on the pitch, that's what I would factor in. You know, that a player who is build appears to be far more suited to midfield. I'd like to see him he needs to play a few more games before I'm convinced he's the absolute solution. He's not played enough for me. But based on what I've seen so far, I don't know. You know, I think this was good when he came on the midfield on Saturday, wasn't he? And he was good at Old Trafford. And
I don't think he's a midfielder.
Yeah, okay.
I don't see that at all. But He's had cameos where he's done okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that United performance, he was basically glued to Tom Davis, was it? You know, so just watching everything he does, you know, just mimic me. He looked like he was definitely playing out of position and just getting through it.
Yeah, that's maybe he was just getting a bit excited about it. So I'd say, I think Breno's right. I think you'd say centre half.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, sticking with defence for the time being, Alad Powell, picking up on obviously a big discussion we had in the last pod, and obviously Anthony Robinson's move to AC Milan didn't happen in the end. Alad asks, is it worth buying back Anthony Robinson and letting Baines leave in the summer?
If Baines is going to go in the summer, I think we do need a left back who's going to be challenging Dean, certainly. Whether it should be Robinson or not, it's hard, isn't it? Like, would he want to come back? I think is
if the situation had changed, you know, if his opportunities are improved because he's now number 2 behind Luca Dean rather than number 3 behind Dean and Baines.
Yeah, perhaps. And then you presume it's going to have to be a similar price of deal, which was a deal worth 10 million, wasn't it? With
6 up front.
6 up front. You know, it's not a lot of money. You know, if we were convinced that Robinson could go on and be, you know, the player that we all thought he could be, you know, a couple of years ago when he was first coming through the ranks, then I wouldn't be against bringing him back. Not at all, because, you know, he's, you know, I think we poo-poo this a lot, but, you know, he is somebody who gets the club. He understands the inner machinations of how Everton works. So, yeah, I suppose I wouldn't be against it personally, no.
I've not seen massive amounts of him, I have to say. I mean, Joe Royle used to rave about him when I spoke to Joe about him, and I saw him playing a couple of Checker Trade Trophy games before he got a serious injury. So, you know, where he looked, you know, it's like he was possibly poised to break through. Letting him go on loan makes me think that, you know, they weren't entirely convinced at the club that he could progress. I'm not so sure. I think Baines possibly does need, you know, so somebody to come in and take that place. And I love Baines, as you know, like, you know, talked about him so positively in here. And whenever he has appeared on occasions this season, he's been great. He's not let anybody down. Yeah. Could he do that again for another season? I don't know. I mean, a lot depends on what they're seeing on the training pitch, what his numbers produce in terms of his fitness levels and his ability to play, you know, so semi-regularly, because obviously he is going to be back up for Lucas Dean. But I do think possibly a younger prospect is required to come in. Whether Anthony Robinson is that player, I don't know enough about him, to be honest, to say he is or he isn't.
Yeah, I think Adam's right about, it depends on the player, doesn't he? Do you got first team football? You've left for first team football. Do you want to come back and then be reserve again? And I think in Everton's sort of like, it would be perceived as a bit of business. You sell a player for, what did we sell him for?
A couple of million, obviously.
In the, when was that? Was that last
summer? In the summer, yeah.
And you're buying it back 12 months later for 6. Does that look
We've done it before. Leighton Baines, Phil Jagielka.
Yeah, but they'd not played. They'd not played for us though, had they? They'd been.
They were youngsters,
youngsters, and like youngsters, aren't they? You know, that would seem to be a strange bit of business for me, and I don't necessarily agree. I think Bainesy could be another year, to be honest with you. I've seen. It goes back to what we want to use with your transfer funds. You can't answer questions about individual players. You've got to see in the context of Everton's transfer kitty and where the priorities are of the squad, aren't they? You know, we can't say buy in. We did that under Koeman, it didn't work. We've got to see it within what our priorities are, and then pass that judgment afterwards. You know.
Another question from Jake. Coleman no longer guaranteed a starting place, who's the best player currently in the squad to take over as captain moving forward?
Oh, that's a great question. There isn't one. I mean, in the current squad,
Interesting.
Nobody absolutely, strikes me as being, an absolutely authoritative leader.
Well, I'll put one out here. I think we have discussed him in the past, and I was reliably informed a few months ago, early in the season, that there's people inside Finch Farm who think Yerry Mina's got captaincy potential.
Yeah. We have mentioned him previously, and the fact that he's still relatively new to the football club, makes you think that that's the only bar that is preventing him having the armband at the moment. That I certainly wouldn't rule that one out. But we've said many times that there is a definite lack of, real leaders, a real presence in that squad. Mina clearly has presence. I don't know what his communication, sort of skills are like, so the rest of the squad.
Through the medium of dance, I think.
I had to give him the armband just for that dance, to be honest, and the looks on the Watford fans' faces sat behind.
While we're here, just a shout out to County Road Bobblers on Twitter, who actually tweeted an hour before kickoff, Yerry Mina dancing with the tweet, spoiler alert, he's scoring today.
Phil, back me up. In the press room before the game, didn't I say Theo Walcott was going to score today?
I believe you did, yes.
Well, tell me these things in advance so I can get some. It's no good telling me now.
I very nearly put that bet on.
Even more impressed you did it on the podcast, so it was there for everybody to hear on the Friday. Yeah, maybe we should do that on the podcast, not just the result, but scorers.
You go through the rest of the squad, and Gomez maybe, so when he's fitting back again. We don't know about Gabamon because we haven't seen him, so we don't know quite what qualities he has. But no one really jumps at me. People that have had the armband this season, I mean, Tom Davis is so young, and to have it, to me, that indicates, so how lacking we are in actual candidates. Gylfi Sigurdsson, he doesn't really give you the impression as being a vocal enough, so inspirational enough person to have the armband. And then obviously it's, being Seamus when he's available. So, it's a gap in the squad that needs addressing at the moment. And for me, no one really screams out at the moment. The fact that Yerry Mina is being talked about as a likely one suggests that, it's something that needs looking at.
Adam, any...
I think I'm happy enough with Luca Dean having the armband for the time being. I think he's certainly vocal enough on the pitch. I think we saw that against Watford. He seems to be a popular member of the squad. He represents Everton well, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I think he's certainly a worthy candidate for me for now. And then, if Mina is to realise this potential over the next few years, then maybe we can have a look at it. Maybe we bring somebody in who's got that captain's feel about him. But I think I'm happy enough with the people who are going to be likely to start games for the rest of the season. I think I'd be happy with Luca Dean having it.
Does it matter anymore, Gav? Who has the armband? Is it arbitrary? Is it something that modern football shouldn't worry itself with?
Yeah, looking after the fines and all that.
Organising the post-season trip to Magaluf.
It's a good point. Well, we keep on saying that we want leaders in clubs and stuff like that, don't we? So we can't have it both ways. We can't say the captaincy doesn't matter and then say, there's no leaders on the pitch. Symbolically there has to be. What's been said before, Dean, I think Mina, who first proposed the captaincy, December 2018, I first said.
You did?
And then he went on a stinking run, didn't he? Which I was like, I think, by the way, are we worried that when Plano says, quite correctly, that we don't appear to have any people who are obvious captain material? Is that an issue for us? Or that's just the way the personality and mix of the squad is?
No, I think it is an issue. I mean, so the successful football clubs have leaders. Okay. They have like 3 or 4 players. They might not necessarily wear the armband, but they have authority, they have presence, they have, so the ability to, so get messages across. You need players like that, and we don't really have enough of them at the moment.
Yeah, because I think, as you're saying, bring somebody in. I mean, do you think Delph was maybe brought in to
he definitely gets his message across, doesn't he? I don't think anybody can deny that Delph doesn't make himself heard.
So obviously didn't do himself any favours. Though I thought
that's a harsh sending off. That.
Yeah, I thought he was actually okay on Saturday, Delph. I know that he was maybe at fault for the second goal, as were a number of Everton players, by the way. But I thought the way he came out of defence a few times, I don't see that from midfield. I thought he was okay.
He's a good player. There's no problem there. I understand why some fans have got an issue with him. So over his social media comments. But no, he was very unlucky to get the red card.
I thought he was. But going back to the question, I would probably say Delph or Mina. Maybe a shout out, or would you want to burden Richarlison with the captaincy?
Just a big call.
Big responsibility for a young player, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know. Exactly. He is, we're told, a player who takes not scoring or defeats really to heart, and I don't know, does he need the added burden of being the leader?
That's the only. You would like to think in 2 or 3 years' time, maybe. If he was still here, well, we hope he still is here.
He will be, Gav.
Sometimes it inspires players having the armband. Sometimes it can be a burden, like you say. I'm just thinking of, it's not often that strikers wear the armband, but Duncan Ferguson famously was handed it by Howard, and to say he was inspired by it is an understatement. He was a different person with that armband on, so it can have a really positive effect. It did the counter as Alan Ball was made captain, and that was a very sort of contrary effect. So
you can have sort of leaders without the armband as well, can't you? Like Tim Cahill's probably probably the biggest one that I can remember.
Yeah,
he was a huge leader of that team, but very rarely wore the armband, if ever.
Yeah, there was times when we had like weird stubs all in the same team. We were all, all captained the team. We're all played together. So I'm more interested in Plano's point, really, the fact that actually there's no obvious choice than the converse of like who would be the captain.
All right, Gav, just quickly, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a team of different personalities, but you have like a core or 2 or 3 really strong leaders? Yeah. Or is the balance and the harmony of a squad more important, and you have a sort of a togetherness, if you like? And
I think years ago you'd want 2 or 3 strong leaders when everybody was like English or British, or Irish, whatever. Where you could have that bonding where you had, like Howard's team in the mid-80s, you had like quite a few. I think now, given changes in, dare I say, wider society and how players are treated, and that you've got sensitive balances within the squad of like different languages, different backgrounds, different cultures, I think probably the latter, where you want a more even feel across the squad. Maybe avoiding 2 or 3 big personalities. You probably, even if you didn't come from the same country, you probably wonder what are they about, I think years ago you could get away with it. I'm not sure if I can get away with it in modern football.
Does that naturally, as much as there's positives, huge positives from having that leadership, strong leadership group, if you like, does that not also run the risk of creating factions?
That's what I mean, and that's the one thing you don't want in a football.
Yeah,
in a football squad, in it is. And that's why like some great teams are falling apart about that, like that. So yeah, I think you want a bit of it's all about quality, isn't it? You want a nice level field, and the best teams in the Premier League have got that, haven't they, really? I think they've got they've got leaders, but there's no absolutely 2 or 3 massive personalities that are running the squad, are they?
Okay. Last question that's come in, and thanks very much for all your questions. Ryan Holroyd, is Iwobi unfairly criticised? Of course, back in the team against Watford for the first time under Ancelotti, obviously after a hamstring injury. Ad?
Yes. Simple answer. I think certainly on Saturday, I think he was unfairly criticised by a lot of people, considering he had spent, he was all right on Saturday, over a month on the sidelines. Yeah, I think we definitely mentioned at half-time that he was probably our most bright player in terms of creativity outside the box. I think he mentioned today that he does like Ancelotti, like starting him from the left, but he quite likes that under Ancelotti because he gets that chance to drift inside and affect the game a little bit more centrally. And I think we were starting to see that a little bit. Obviously, there were quotes from him earlier in the week as well where he says he knew that he wasn't perfect. His reaction times were a little bit off, but that's always going to be the case when you spend a month on the sidelines. So I think keep giving him the amount of game time. Keep getting him up to that match sharpness again, and we'll see. We saw a quality player at the start of his Everton career. With those 2 goals in quick succession. So yeah, I think we've got a quality player on our hands there, definitely.
Any difference of opinion or an agreement? It's something that I think, if you ask Evertonians, I think maybe one of the frustrations maybe is a defensive. Is he a bit tentative going into challenges? And you know what it's like at Goodison, if a player doesn't appear to be going full-blooded into a challenge, that can be an issue.
It can be. It's the Goodison law, though, isn't it? That there needs to be a player who's a whipping boy at any one particular time. And, it seems to be Iwobi at the moment. I think that's harsh, yeah. He's, again, it's a young footballer, still at, a different club for the first time in his career. And he settled fairly quickly, I thought, and looked a player. We're not quite sure what the best position is for him, which is the issue. But no, he's certainly got talent. Arsenal fans were disappointed to see him go. He's and we still haven't seen the best of him. But yeah, it's hard to criticise him. He's a decent enough player who we've seen flashes of decency from, but we're going to see even better. So when he settles and as he grows into the club.
Yeah, I agree. I think he got stick because of Saturday, but there was some good pieces and comments I picked up about saying that people say loses the ball a lot, but he tends to have all the players who got the one who take the most risks with their passing. So
he's losing the ball in the right areas.
And but what he gets to the reward when he gets it right, which happened a few times this season. So sometimes passing stats aren't necessarily the best indication, aren't they? I think you don't mind if there's one player in the squad who lose the ball if you know they're trying to make things happen. Really, you can forgive that. So I wouldn't say that justification of him on Saturday was fair. And I think there's a player there, but I think as we say, it's the what position he's in, and he's another one who's got a bit of pace and stuff, hasn't he? You know?
Absolutely, good stuff. Well, thank you very much, chaps. We'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for your company, and excellent as always, and thank you very much for listening. We will reconvene on Friday. Carlo Ancelotti's pre-match press conference taking place early Friday afternoon ahead of the early kick-off with Crystal Palace on Saturday. So we'll be back around the table to pour over what the manager has had to say. Thank you very much for listening. This has been the Royal Blue Podcast.
The Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.